Welcome back to Wasted Wagons. Like customary, we're going to do a shot. This is something we started back in episode 1. We're going to drink some sake tonight. And I want to do a little shout out to Patrick. He recently got his certification in WSET Sake Level 1.
Thank you.
Whoop, whoop. Took him a long
Congrats,
time
Pat.
to do, but you know what? He's a professional now, and he's good at it. So
The man's work.
He's a certified sake maker.
he's
you know what I
a
mean?
sake
Like,
man.
no lie, the guy that taught the class, his email titling is Sake Samurai. I'm like, damn, that's kind of cool. I want to be one of those, right?
Pat, are we about to shoot your sake?
Homemade.
I hate you so much.
Okay, it's milky white. I see it's milky
It's-
white. Is
it's
there
called-
a reason why it's milky
It's called Nigori,
Oh,
which
it
is technically means unfiltered.
there's a
It
reason.
is cloudy.
It is cloudy.
It's cloudy.
white? And it's thick, Pat. It's thick, white, and cloudy.
Oh, I got something thicker and wider for you. Don't worry. If you really want to feel the back of your throat, I got something for you. Don't
White,
worry.
milky.
We need to play that edit to the
Actually,
Imagine Dragons song
you know,
from that
think
GIF.
I've had
You
this
know?
before.
Yeah.
You know what, listeners? We're going to take a quick picture of this. That way we can post it on our Twitter. That way y'all can see what we're talking about here.
Yeah, the consistency, the taste, and the
Let's put our
color.
shot glasses up.
All right, let's do a shot.
Patrick has provided us with these really cool bird dog mason jar shot glasses. Very cool looking.
Like mini mason jars.
All right, see you at the bottom, boys. I hope you hate it.
Actually, what we're going to do before we take the shot is we're going to do a little toast to, whether you're a wrestling fan or not, we actually lost 2 wrestlers this week, legends actually. Obviously Terry Funk was one. We lost. He passed away on Wednesday, and we lost Wyndham Rotunda, also known as Bray Wyatt, yesterday. Terry Funk was a little bit before my time. We kind of caught him at the tail end of his career when he was in ECW and when he was tagging with Cactus Jack in WWE. But Bray Wyatt was one of these guys that me and Travis really kind of followed as of recently in WWE. Super, super talented guy. He did his Fiend gimmick, which was actually really, really popular on WWE for months span. It was actually the most popular segment they had. Guy was just really super, super talented. Also, as far as
Sorry, Todd.
also as far as his character goes, he portrayed this really dark, intimidating, frightening guy, with Bray Wyatt and the Fiend. But as far as his fan outreach goes, he was really known as one of the most kind, caring, giving individuals in the WWE community. So I do want to toast to both Terry Funk and Bray Wyatt with these shots. 2 huge losses for the wrestling community if you're wrestling fans out there.
And look, his theme song "Live in Fear," we were just playing it during our break, and to me, that was one of the more underrated ring entrance themes that exist, in my opinion. Very cool song. Definitely kind of fit his persona of being the spooky guy when he come in. But yeah, I agree with Todd. He's a very talented, very entertaining guy to watch, and he was only 36 years old. And it's just crazy to me. It's just, you always kind of wonder, what takes somebody that young.
Well, here goes to them. The shot, may everybody remember them for who they were.
To Bray and Terry.
Ray and Terry, and
Cheers.
congratulations to Patrick.
Yay.
And Patrick, congrats.
Sake, see you at the bottom. It's an interesting taste, eh?
Yeah,
I definitely taste the milky white.
wasn't really expecting that.
It's a little sweet.
shot.
I prefer cold because I've had the warm sake
Yeah.
before, and it's just nothing special to me. But this, yeah.
It's a little sweet. Patrick must have ate pineapple last night.
Sometimes I do.
He has a
Sometimes
hot
I
date
don't.
tonight. What can we say?
Do I?
Huh?
That's why you drink the pineapple juice.
Oh.
Oh.
Oh. Well, anyway, I won't get into that. You know what?
Put any
Screw all
pineapples on
you
your front porch?
guys. Screw all you guys. As long as your pineapple isn't upside down. But hey, if your pineapple is upside down, I'm not judging.
Yeah, more
That's-
power to you.
Yeah, do your thing.
If you want
My,
company, leave one on your front porch.
My friends of mine, maybe one day they'll probably listen to this podcast. But they're good friends of mine. I've known them for probably 20-something years. It's a husband and wife couple.
Speaking of pineapples.
Yeah, well, it ties in. They have a camper, so like they'll go travel like to state parks and like camp for a weekend and stuff like that. They also adventure out in other ways of life, let's just say. And they know
They have the alternative lifestyle, is what you're saying?
somewhat. They've
They would have frequented HBO back in the day.
probably so. But no, like they
Next guest.
no, they on the back of their camper, like the spare tire cover, they used to have one that said that was just an upside down pineapple, and people didn't really know what the hell it was. They thought it was just whatever. That somebody even told them like, "Hey, you know your tire cover's on upside down." They're like, no, we're good. We got it right."
We know.
With a new one, the new the one that they got, it just says, we sleep around," and it's a double, and they're like, "Whoa!" And they tried to explain to their daughter once, and I was like, "Oh, this is fantastic. Good luck with that, y'all.
Keep swinging. Swing for the fences.
Swing for the fences."
So we just did our shout out / toast to Bray Wyatt and Terry Funk, which leads into a good segue into our next top five. I think a good top five for this
Top
episode
five.
would be our favorite top five wrestling superstars. And notice, of course, I don't say WWE because they don't have to just be in WWE with all the other promotions out there. So who would like to get us started? Mike's going to go first.
I'll go first. I got my little list. I worked on this. I like you all know from previous episodes. I don't like to do the whole number thing. So I'm gonna just say in no particular order. And I know it goes against the top five, thing, but whatever.
You're a rebel. It's
It's
okay.
just me. I'm a rebel.
You're a rebel.
Boom, boom. So first one, when I was a little kid.
I thought about bringing my Bray Wyatt team figure out here, but it's all right.
When I was a kid, I watched wrestling way more than I, have seen it these days, and I think most of us are like that. But my favorite wrestlers are the Ultimate Warrior. I think, seeing the energy that guy had coming out on stage,
His physique.
his energy. I cried that time that Kamala. Who was the voodoo guy? The guy that
Papa Shango.
Papa Shango.
Yeah.
Papa Shango casted that curse on him, and he started bleeding black.
Or was it Kamala?
One of the
Kamala
two.
was-
Anyway, I remember crying when I was a kid and I saw that. I was like, "Oh my God, he's dying."
Is this a love letter to the Ultimate Warrior?
Maybe.
Wow.
Rest in power.
So
Lord
yeah,
Hellwig.
Ultimate Warrior.
Lord
I was a
Hellwig.
fan of his. Still am.
It's getting emotional over there. All right.
No, not
I'm
much.
cheering up.
I'm moving on.
There's a tissue right
The next one is got to be Razor Ramon. Man, Scott Hall,
Hey, yo.
specifically Razor Ramon.
Hey, yo.
He did that. It was just,
Hey,
it was
yo.
phenomenal. My memory with that was in 7th grade. Me and Todd had a project to do.
Yes. I'm surprised you brought this up.
Yep, no,
Wow.
that's very special to this day for me. I still remember that.
Might need a tissue again.
Me and Todd had this class with who was that? Miss
I think
Norman?
Miss Norman, I
Miss
think,
Norman?
yeah. Science
I
class.
give him mine, but mine's a little crusty at the moment. From that
And,
Osaki.
Look, I'm not a guy that remembers things from long ago,
It's a
and
tube song.
Todd and Travis will be able to tell you that. Like I don't remember a lot of stuff, but that is one vivid memory that I have. And we were tasked to do some kind of
Create a planet.
create a planet with however we wanted to do it, what was going to be on the planet, and what else. It was just
Way to create like the people on
the
it.
people
like
on
the-
it and how they live and all that.
civilization.
Well, we named our planet, and me and Todd were teammates on this project.
We tag team.
We tag team, and at the time, man, Razor Ramon was the thing.
He was the man.
So we created Razor Ronic,
Razor Ronic.
and that was the name of our planet. And of course, Razor Ramon was the warlord or whatever. I don't remember that part of it, but He was a phenomenal wrestler.
Purple trunks or
really-
green trunks?
Really enjoyed him, portraying
Were they trunks?
a fake Cuban, with his toothpick and everything else.
We
You know the story
actually got to meet him.
We
You know,
met
a
him.
few years
We
ago
met
at a
Eisler.
local
Yeah.
Wildcat Wrestling
Yep.
show.
You know the story behind
Guest
Scott
signer.
Hall, right? Is that he was trying to figure out a character in front of Vince McMahon. He just did a bogus like Scarface impression, and McMahon's like, "That's it, that's
it.
awesome."
We got it.
And McMahon had no idea. He was just like imitating Scarface, and he was like, "Hey, Chico, yeah." And he was talking like that. And he's like, "That's your character." Like, all right, I'm a normal white guy, but I'm Chico. I'm Razor Ramon.
Yeah, I was gonna say like fun fact. He's actually from like Cincinnati, I think.
Yeah.
He is. Yeah, not Cuban.
The Chicos are for fun.
His son is still somewhere in the independent circuit as well. Goody Hall.
Yeah,
That's right.
I didn't know that.
So the next wrestler, Sting. I think
Sting's still going.
Yeah, Sting was
Still going
was
strong?
Got
great.
Sting or flat top Sting?
The
Crow string. Definitely
Yeah,
Crow.
Crow.
Crow
With
Sting,
with
there
the
you
white
go.
face.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he had the red face at one time.
Yeah, it was a Wolfpack Sting.
NWO Sting
Yeah.
and
For
fake
life.
Sting when there was a double Sting.
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
remember that,
Yeah.
I remember that, man. That was
NWO.
phenomenal. I think that was
He's
pretty
still going
cool.
strong. He's in AEW.
How old
last-
is Sting? Can you look that up?
67.
That guy has to be. He's got to be old now. But let me tell you, man, that was true entertainment when I was a kid.
Of course, his tag team partner that he was with most recently, Darby.
Darby Allin.
Darby Allin.
Just
So I would have thought older, but it still checks out. 64.
64
I said
years old.
67. Okay.
I was thinking maybe like early
And-
70.
And he's
Sting is
still
64.
Yeah.
The dude's still wrestling.
And he's
That's
still
pretty
wrestling.
good. Still,
That's
he looks
still getting
pretty good.
That
dude.
is amazing.
You wouldn't guess, but the way he looks.
Steve Borden.
that is amazing.
Steve Borden. It's no Calvin Brodus.
So shout out to
Snoop Dogg.
him for being a true entertainer of that industry.
I mean, he was the face of WCW for
Yeah.
a while.
Yeah, he was. The next one on my list is gonna be Diamond Dallas Page.
Hey,
That
DDP
guy.
Yoga.
That
See,
guy
it was,
was.
He extended Scott Hall's life.
He was a good wrestler.
Yeah, it's Big Van Vader.
He did some crazy moves and he
Diamond
was really
Cutter.
unforgettable.
He kind of originated the RKO because he was, Diamond Cutter is a more
The cutter.
came before the RKO.
The next one, and like I said, no particular order.
Quick, knock it off. 67 years old. DDP.
Wow.
Dude, he looks great.
Yeah.
Especially for 67.
Wow.
how tall was he? He was pretty tall, like 6'6" or
The
something.
tall guy.
6'5".
Six
Yeah.
five.
The best DDP moment was his feud with Raven and Raven's Flock.
Yes.
Love
Mhm.
the
I
feud.
might and put a pin in that for when I talk.
Okay.
So my next one, just another old one that really, when I was a kid, I loved how he came on stage. He really stole the show. He came out, man. He was on fire when he would come out. It was Shawn Michaels,
No,
No.
the Heartbreak Kid.
the Heartbreak
sexy
Kid.
boy.
Man, he
HBK.
would come out of that the back and get on that ring, and it was like he stole the show. No matter what he did, where he was at, and
He was the showstopper.
He was true charisma because he didn't
He
have
was
like
charisma.
a huge physique. He wasn't
Nope.
that ripped. He was just,
Nope.
you
He was
know,
just a pretty boy with a hairy chest.
And
and all the girls.
women dug the chest hair.
average sized dude. He wasn't all roided up like Triple H, but he just, I don't know, he had the charisma.
So that's my 5. I do have some honorable mentions here. Just briefly, Hulk Hogan. I mean, he's phenomenal. Undertaker. He's like one of the most famous wrestlers probably all time. And then Bret Hart. Bret Hart.
Man.
Can you really like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels at the same time? No.
Sure.
Well,
Maybe for different reasons, but yeah.
They were like arch enemies.
Maybe you
Yeah,
like
they
one,
were.
maybe you respect the other,
Yeah.
whatever.
kind of like that. But Bret Hart.
But they were the one. Basically, Shawn Michaels was the one that was responsible for Bret Hart leaving
Yep.
WWE. So I mean,
Which I got a story in my top 5 about 2 guys who actually real life hate each other. So anyway, both are my top 5.
that's my list. And like I said, when I was a kid, that was the thing. It was wrestling. I tried to get my kids into watching some of that, and they'd rather play Fortnite or whatever. But look, I had some good times, some good memories, and all these guys did an excellent job with entertaining, and that's exactly what it was, entertainment.
Mike's starting to steal some of mine. Well, because of course number one is
we're all around the same
I know.
age.
Yeah, see, Sean got his,
I think there's probably a decent amount of overlap for at
I
least a
pulled out
couple
my
of us.
Undertaker in his purple outfit coming out of the casket. Pop figure right here. That was my favorite Undertaker, probably number one. I remember my dad took me to one of those like house shows, and I bought a T-shirt. It was purple with like his face all over it. I wore it like crazy in like 7th grade. Thought it was so cool. And that was the era when he had that feud with Mankind, Mick Foley. We'll throw Mick Foley in there. I guess wasn't a huge fan of Dude Love and his other weird characters, but I mean overall, I'd say he's a
Mankind was definitely his best.
Mankind won't make my top 5, but that dude went through fucking hell
yeah.
in almost every
After
match he was
seeing,
in.
like Beyond the Mat, and wasn't he in that's the movie we're talking about how he really got beaten pretty bad and stuff and thrown off the top of the cell by the Undertaker.
I agree with Todd. I like Mankind better than Mick Foley and Cactus Jack as far as the
Dude Love.
Mick Foley.
Dude Love was just dumb.
Dude Love, yeah. Of all the Mick Foley impersonations, I like the Mankind the best.
Yep. And then I'd also have to say Bret Hart. And I can say, I don't know, countless times that I put my best friend, who y'all know, in the sharpshooter in his bedroom before. And,
Whoa, go on.
I mean, I'm not going to do it in his living room in front of his parents,
Wait,
Well,
what are we talking about here?
Sure.
The sharpshooter,
That's
huh?
what we called it, the sharpshooter.
That's what they called that rumble.
But I remember Super Nintendo Royal Rumble game. For some reason, it was like when you'd go to each wrestler, they would play their theme music in the crappy 16-bit version. I kept going to Bret Hart's music and just listening to it. It was like rocking out to his freaking theme song.
Did you ever have the WWE soundtrack?
Yes.
Oh yeah,
I wore that CD out.
I have the first 2 volumes still on my shelf.
Nice.
Combat Johnson's Pearl Over Rip.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then speaking of that same friend who might be a guest on the future show, another one of my favorites that we used to play his theme song in his garage on a guitar and drums. Stone Cold Steve Austin. That lovely one finger play it over and over again, and we thought it was the coolest thing ever. Just play it for an hour and aggravate the neighbors. But I think I might still have it.
Did y'all have the glass breaking first before the guitar riffs?
Yes, I won't recognize the guitar riff. It is only the glass break for me.
But yeah, I just remember I might still have it on a VHS somewhere buried in this other room here of the King of the Ring, where he won King of the Ring, looks into the camera and he says, "Go home and thump your little Bibles and read your John 3:16." But Austin 3:16 says, "I just whipped your ass." And that was like in 6th grade. I was just like, I love this dude.
And that was a turnaround.
Still one of the best maybe scenes from WWE ever was when Vince McMahon was in the hospital and Stone Cold comes in disguised as a doctor and attacks him on the hospital bed. Still one of the best scenes ever.
And then speaking of him and Bret Hart, they had a little feud going, like the no quit match or something, and Bret Hart had him like bloodied up and everything, and it was like an hour long, and there was all this stuff about he didn't submit or something because he like passed out from bleeding so much or something. It was crazy stuff then. And then I don't know who else would I put on the list, like the Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan a little bit. I mean, I'd say just collectively was what made me obsessed with WCW was the NWO.
Oh yeah,
was just when being a kid and not following, going into being gullible with the storyline and stuff. And hearing at school of like, wait, 2 of the WWF guys went over to WCW and they're taking over. And of course you tune in and it's like, wait, that's Diesel and Razor Ramon. What the hell are they doing over here?
They're teaming up.
Like that's just mind blowing to a 6th grader. And it's just like,
you remember at 8th grade at Rumble, I mean, that was like the real talk. It was the Monday Night Wars tours with like Raw
Mhm.
and WCW.
Oh yeah, that was our early high school days, and that was like I remember from Mardi Gras. I had one of those
That's a good
tall
time.
hats, the striped hats, and it was like NWO and it was black and white striped, and I had my NWO T-shirt.
Well, used to wear.
I think I even had black and white face paint on. I was like decked out in NWO shit.
Yeah,
So you went in
last
Black
birthday
and white
party
face.
we ever had.
Yin Yang face.
The last birthday party we ever had, we went to laser tag, and it was how we separated teams, and it ended up being a pretty even split. It was who liked WCW and who liked NWO.
Mhm.
It ended up being a nice split.
Yeah, I remember that. Don't want to go out names.
Go
There's another interesting character there.
ahead and say it. It's a safe space.
No, but
Not really.
a
It's
game,
not
I,
safe
I
space.
can say
Definitely
Not a
not.
safe space.
a game that wore my thumb out on on an N64 was the WCW versus NWO game that came out, and it was just like it had all the it had like 60 something wrestlers on it from both sides, and it was like get to be
Tag team.
get to be all your favorite NWO guys as well as WCW, Sting and his pro phase and everything, and I don't know who didn't I name or how many did I name? Was it like 4?
Probably.
Undertaker, Hogan,
Hart.
Bret Hart.
Bret Hart.
And Stone Cold.
Stone
Stone
Cold.
You
Cold.
got one more.
You got one more.
One more. Yeah, I kind of threw Mick Foley in there.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
true.
The
You said
different.
the Ultimate Warrior too.
Yeah, Ultimate
yeah.
Warrior.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, Ultimate Warrior brings me back to the Superstars or whatever that came on Saturdays, and sitting on the couch with my dad, and just that was like my first exposure to wrestling, and him coming out and shaking the ropes and everything, and it was just like who was this dude? This dude's crazy,
Fun fact: he is the guy our fantasy football team is named after.
Got a little figure
Or league.
trophy.
And the trophy is called Lord Helvig's Cup, named after his actual name.
Solid. It's a good list. Good list.
So we had a couple of crossovers already. We had the Undertaker, Bret Hart, Ultimate Warrior, and Ultimate Warrior on both lists so far.
Yeah, there's gonna be some crossover on mine as well. I think Todd and Travis they're probably way more into like the deep part of wrestling than the rest of us. But so I expect a few different things from their list. But I think I'll have a little bit of crossover. I'll start with my one OLI. It's HBK. And just as a aside, my list is all based off of like these guys, maybe not the best wrestlers, but like their personality and like how much I wanted to imitate them and do their moves. And my poor nephew caught hell because he's 8 years younger than me, and
Sweet chin music.
I needed a test dummy for all the sweet wrestling moves I learned, and unfortunately, it had to be him. And he caught a couple. He didn't catch any sweet chin music, but he caught a couple for figure fours, and that got in a lot of trouble for
Not to
it.
interrupt you too long, but just like my love of NWO, I love Degeneration X.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I love Shawn Michaels more in that than just as HBK.
Mhm.
I can remember in 8th grade, like in PE class, doing the suck it to everybody, like making a basket or like volleyball and just doing this the whole class.
When you look at Degeneration X, Degeneration X is probably a top 3 faction of all time, in my opinion, because you got the 4 Horsemen, Degeneration X, and I think even that surpassed them, in my opinion, was Evolution with Triple H, Randy Orton, Batista, and Ric Flair. So yeah, Triple H has been part of some pretty good factions.
That was another song we play in the garage.
yeah. So yeah, HBK gets my my outside looking in. My number 5. Yeah, this is probably in order. My number 5 is probably The Rock. Just
mentioned yet. Yeah.
Rocky Maivia.
the sheer entertainment value of his one-liners when he would hit people with the poontang pie or any pie that, or tell them to shut your mouth, you candy ass. I got in so much trouble for like saying that to like anybody in my family, and they're like, "What'd you say?" I'm like, sorry. They hope you enjoyed that beer, Todd. Just walking around and just like saying all his one-liners to people and getting in trouble for it, but it was hilarious. Didn't have the best finishing move. Had a cool name, but it wasn't the best finishing move. But he was
more than one. He had the People's Elbow and the Rock.
Yeah, but his entertainment value for me was why he gets to go on my list.
Were impeccable.
Oh yeah.
There's
Again,
a
like I
reason
said,
he's a huge actor now.
Yeah.
He was a great actor.
I got into more trouble for trying to talk like him than anything else as a kid in terms of like imitating someone and stuff like that. My number 4 is also on Sean's list. It's the Undertaker.
Okay.
In my opinion,
He's been on all 3 lists so far.
yeah, he is my favorite entrance of all time.
Okay.
Just the creepy, eerie music, the slow walk with Paul Bearer, the bells, the smoke.
I can
it
remember.
just-
I can remember telling my dad something about Paul Bearer, and not knowing that it's a pun.
Paul,
the
yeah,
dude's
with
name,
actual Paul
thinking
Bearer,
that was the
yeah.
guy's legit name. That's
Yeah.
how into wrestling I was. My dad's
Mhm.
laughing. I'm like, why are you laughing at the guy's name? And I had no idea as a kid.
When the Undertaker was near his retirement, his entrance probably lasted longer than his matches.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
No question.
It was
I can't
easy.
say I fell in love with Kane too in that whole rivalry.
Yeah, that was a cool storyline and story arc. But yeah, just the mystique, the man, the aura, his whole fight. Again, the entrance to it was the best for me. Tried to put my nephew in a few tombstone pile drivers. Probably shouldn't have done that. Probably could have really injured that kid. But you're
Just keep the head above the knees. You're fine.
yeah. Hey yo, what we talking about here?
Austin 316. I just broke your
yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Can you imagine explaining to your parent or your sister like, hey, yeah, I broke my nephew's neck. What were you doing? Put him in
The Undertaker did that to Austin. Then the tombstone was a little too
It was
low.
Owen Hart.
Owen Hart
Yeah.
was
Yeah,
okay.
it was Owen
I thought it
Hart.
was Stone Cold. But
Rest in peace.
How many matches was he in? He was buried alive.
Yeah.
Like what?
the
6, 7, 8
Boiler
of them?
Room Brawl was probably the
Yeah.
ultimate one I remember, with him and Mankind hitting each other with lead pipes
Mhm.
and stuff. They're like in the back, freaking
Yeah.
behind the stadium, and like the friggin' whatever it is.
There was a thing I saw. He was doing a documentary, and he got burned really bad in one of the shows that he did,
Mhm.
and he just went right through it and dealt with the pain,
Mhm.
did his performance, did the whole match, and then went back and he had second and third degree burns.
Yeah.
From pyrotechnics.
What I can say, it's pretty ironic considering I was a huge Limp Bizkit fan when he did that change into the Attitude Era with the bike and everything. It took me a while to
That
warm
was
up to
lame.
that.
That was.
I felt pretty betrayed. I was like, "What happened to my Undertaker?
Yeah,
This is not."
Yeah.
And the
Definitely.
rolling. It's
bizarre
like,
gimmick he's ever done. Not the high time of the Undertaker.
I'll spend a little bit more time on my number 3 because my number 2 and 1 have a bit of crossover as well. My number 3 is Coco Beware.
Yes. I thought he'd be number 1.
I famously showed up to what party was that?
That was Sean's Halloween.
Sean's Halloween
We were
party.
in the
Dressed-
famous house of Halloween party. Right
Yeah, dressed as Coco Beware. Frankie the Bird. He was called the Birdman. He had this little saunter walk to the ring.
this picture of Patrick needs to go on all the social.
Yeah, we'll definitely upload that. That was a picture
It's
a sight to be seen.
I don't have it, send it to me.
Yeah, my number 2 is Stone Cold.
Yeah.
I tried to give everyone I knew a Stone Cold stunner. Also some of the good one-liners. Austin 316. Just the taking 2 beers, clashing together, and just chugging. He did get 2 ounces of beer in his mouth. The rest was just all over his face. He would wear it. And I wanted to do that every chance I got, jumping on top of furniture and taking cans of whatever soda I had and just smash them together and doing all that.
One of my favorite lines of his is when he says, "You can put an S in front of Hitman, and you know what I think of Bret Hart."
Yeah, he was another just wild personality. No 2 middle fingers to all authority. Yeah, we talked about the Vince McMahon hospital brawl he had. Classic. My number 1 was on Sean's list. And I think Mike touched on him as well. Was Razor Ramon.
Yes, sir.
One of my other favorite entrance music, just the beat coming out. And I would always take a toothpick, and my mom was pissed because I would have toothpicks, and I just walk up and just flick them at people. He's like, "Hey, yo, say hello to the bad guy," and just he'd slick his hair back. I just wanted to act like that as a kid, and I was like, man, this dude's super cool, even though he wasn't actually Cuban.
I was about to say at summer camp when I was a camp counselor, all the kids wanted to be Stone Cold Stunnered into the pool, but also Razor's Edge was a popular one.
Absolutely.
Lift them up over the back of you and then just throw them in the pool that way. Every kid wanted that.
I kind of like the Brock Lesnar F5 into the pool.
Yeah, Razor Ramon gets my number 1 spot just because all the matches, but just the way he came out to the ring was awesome. Stone Cold could maybe go number 1, but I was real sad when he passed. But yeah, Riz Ramon gets my number one.
All right, I'm going to go with before I do my top five, I'm going to do 3 honorable mentions that were kind of close to making my top five. One of them, of course, is Stone Cold Steve Austin, as already mentioned. He was so comical. Had some of the best skits in wrestling. Stone Cold Stunner. Everybody wanted to emulate. His podcast, is phenomenal. At a Broken Skull Ranch, as he calls it. Has some really good wrestlers on there that he interviews. If you haven't checked it out,
He's actually got his own beer. He's got his own
Broken
beer.
Skull IPA. Really good beer.
Isn't he still married to like Deborah McMichael or somebody like that?
That I don't know.
I forget who he married, something like that.
But I'll give him an honorable mention. I also give Taz an honorable mention. One of the pioneers of ECW. Also, the Human Suplex Machine. Great wrestler, great technical wrestler. His son is now in AEW. His son goes by Hook. Yeah, his son goes by Hook.
I like Taz on the Tough Enough. Remember that show?
Yep,
on MTV. I used to like Taz on that.
Taz is actually the manager of his son and the head of the FTW faction in AEW. He also had a great podcast, but I guess since he joined AEW, he kind of cut it out. His show, the Taz Show, was also very, very entertaining. He gave some great insight into wrestling.
He's also a very talented ring announcer. He's commentator.
He did that for a while. Huh?
Yep, and WWE and AEW.
Yep. He's currently doing AEW. He used to do WWE, primarily on SmackDown. Really, very, very close to making my top five. The last one I want to give a shout out to is, I told you to put a pin in it because, Travis mentioned that DDP was very, very vital during the Ravens flock days in WCW. One of my honorable mentions is going to be Billy Kidman from the Ravens flock. He was a cruiserweight in WCW and WWE. Very, very talented. Never really caught on too much when he went to WWE, but I really loved his character, Ravens flock.
I forgot about all those titles and stuff, and they had cruiserweight and all that stuff in WCW.
His finishing move, the shooting star press, or as he called it when he was in Ravens flock, the 7-year itch, was, it takes a lot of skill to do that, Not everybody can do it. It has to take somebody with extreme athleticism to do it. He is now, I think, currently a commentator or a broadcaster for WWE in some way, shape, or form. He works for WWE, but I give him the honorable mention as well.
And look, at one point in his life, he was married to Tori Wilson, so props to that.
Yeah, props to that. Billy, you did good with that. So I'm going to start my top five, and I'm going to start at number 5. I know Mike's been really itching at this one, and he really is probably one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, if not the greatest. The dude's a 16-time world champion.
Who?
Strutting his stuff, famous master of the
Woo! The Nature Boy.
I'm going to give Ric Flair my number 5. I'm surprised nobody else has. The guy has been around forever. He just recently supposedly retired. He's still doing matches. Sticks kind of with his old school style, but is very, very entertaining. He's a comical guy as well. He did some managing for a little bit.
So I saw a documentary where he went to North Korea and performed in North Korea for some kind of North Korean match that Kim Il-sung wanted to hold there for publicity. It was a publicity thing. And to this day, that, believe it or not, it holds the record for the most attended wrestling event in the whole world.
Wow. I did not know that.
Not much to do in North Korea.
It was it was very weird because nobody really cheered, and it was very, very, very solemn.
I was going to say, when they're allowed to leave their houses in North Korea, they have to go to a wrestling event.
But he was one of the American wrestlers that went, and
he made it out alive.
He made it out alive, and
I'm sure they were happy to see the Nate.
Very cool, very cool. And again, I'm gonna just go ahead and do it again. Woo!
The guy's a phenom. nothing else to really say. I mean, one thing I can take away from him is I'm sure everybody at this table probably watched the ESPN 30 for 30 on Ric Flair. And I think one thing I really took away from it was at the end of it, he said that he had slept with over like 500 women in his lifetime. I mean, it's crazy. Maybe more than that. I can't remember the exact number, but it was an astronomical number.
It was
like every night after an event when he wanted anyone, it was just like, it's crazy.
I mean, in and of itself, that is, deserves a hand clap. But, aside from his in-ring ability, his ability to talk on the mic, just his longevity in the career, Ric Flair gets my number.
I definitely
5.
respect the dude. It's just for me, it was like he was in WWF pretty early in the 90s. And then it was like I didn't get into WCW until later on. So it's like I kind of like missed him. I didn't get to see him that much, but seen enough like the 30 for 30 and, his history and know what he did for the sport. So I definitely respect him.
My fourth, I'm going to go with a current wrestler. And I know you guys probably may not have heard of him. But if you're really looking to watch wrestling now, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I love heels. And the main reason why I love heels is because they have a great ability to talk in the mic and really entertain the crowd.
Yeah.
So at number 4, I'm going to go with Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF. The guy is probably the best heel to have ever existed. We can look at guys like...
Is that the guy that stays in character when he leaves the show and everything?
Oh, yeah. He is.
So when you said heels, I thought you were going to say like China or something.
No, the guy he's like a villain. He plays the part, and like even when he's like out of character in person, he's playing the part. And he does even at autograph signings.
Never out of character, yeah.
At autograph signings, he will sign autographs and then shove them off the table so that they can pick them up. He's phenomenal.
And look, his mic skills. Since we talked about The Rock, Patrick was the only one to mention The Rock. The Rock had phenomenal skills. The Miz has phenomenal mic skills. MJF is right up there with the caliber of The Miz and The Rock.
Look, I put MJF above him. Like MJF is at a whole new level. I think as far as mic skills goes, the guy's impeccable. If you guys are ever to get back into wrestling, he's the guy to watch. He's primarily the only reason why I watch. Other than Malachi Black, he's primarily the guy I watch in AEW nowadays. Seriously entertaining. If you go look on his Twitter, he's still being a dick. The guy's phenomenal. MJF gets my number.
I've heard enough about him that I'm laughing because of the stuff y'all told me about him.
Number 3, I'm going to go to Classic. He was actually originally my favorite wrestler of all time when I was a kid. And it was mainly because of his whole policeman gimmick. But it's going to be the late, great Ray Traylor, Big Boss Man. He'll be my third choice. If you really go back and watch, he didn't have that great of in-ring ability. I mean, if he is his finishing move was like a spinning clothesline, it wasn't that great. I just loved the whole policeman gimmick, and he would put the handcuffs on you and leave you on the.
That was definitely the 80s, huh?
The ropes of the ring.
Yeah. Late 80s.
That was the kind of the crazy characters in the 80s, like
That's
watching with my dad.
When I first started watching it, like
You know, like when you mentioned Boss Man.
I don't think Patrick likes the Big Boss Man.
No, it's just not surprising. You like a guy from Marietta, Georgia.
He was from Cobb County.
Marietta, Georgia.
But
they do things a little different down there.
The main thing I liked about the Big Boss Man was when he tag teamed with Akeem, the African Dream, and they were known as the Twin Towers. I thought
Towers, baby.
I thought that was a really cool tag.
Hey, there were no earthquake and typhoon.
We did meet.
That was a hell of a publicity stunt. Let's sports wash your real image.
We actually got to meet Akeem, the African Dream / the one man gang.
One man gang.
At a little Comic-Con convention last year. And the guy was extremely nice. He told us his life story. He's like, you paid for his autograph, and he didn't really have a line, unfortunately. But at the same time, he was very open, was asking you about your life, told you about his. I mean, probably the most down-to-earth guy was, Akeem the African Dream.
Patrick, what do you think of a white guy playing Akeem the African Dream?
Go watch the movie White Man's Burden, and that'll tell you exactly how I feel about it. If you know anything about that movie with John Travolta in it, you'll understand. But shocking, Todd likes a guy that walks around beating people with billy clubs.
All right, hey, wait. I could say the 80s personas were just hilarious, some of them, because what Boss Man makes me think of Brutus the Barber Beefcake, and he would cut people's hair with freaking head clippers.
with hedge clippers.
That was like seeing that as a kid,
jacked.
sitting on the couch with my dad watching that. I was like, they do this on
Actually,
TV,
still-
He's cutting the guy's hair with clippers. Like, okay.
So who comes in at number
So I'm
2?
going to move on from number 3, go to number 2. And obviously, Mike mentioned him, Patrick mentioned him. My number 2 goes to Razor Ramon / Scott Hall. We met him in person at Meisler. Dude was cool as shit. I had a Scott Hall T-shirt. He pointed it out. He's like, "Oh man, you got a Scott Hall T-shirt." He still had the fucking toothpick in his mouth. I mean, he's just carrying on. He was carrying on that gimmick and that persona until the end. His finishing move is cool as shit. The Razor's Edge / Outsider's Edge, the whole Cuban, the Razor Ramon thing. That was really what started me as as one of his favorites. But then when I found out he was in NWO, that made me really, really become a fan of NWO when Scott Hall was in it. So he comes in at number 2. Rest in peace, Scott Hall. You were an extreme asset to the wrestling community.
Rest in power.
Number 1. Nobody mentioned him yet. Maybe nobody even watched him because I know most of Sean and Mike's were kind of and Patrick's were kind of all in really in the 90s or before.
Booker T.
Honky Tonk Man.
Jimmy Superfly Snooker.
Number 1 goes to my guy, man, the Viper, the Legend Killer, Randy Orton.
Hey.
What really attracted me to this guy, he kind of burst on the scene with Ric Flair, Batista, Triple H in the faction Evolution. He showed up as this young, cocky, arrogant guy. Loved him. He was the perfect heel right when he broke on the scene. I always felt like Randy Orton was at his best when he played the heel, but even when he was playing the babyface, he still did a great job. All his moves, very, very fluid in the ring. There's a reason why the guy made it all the way to 38 and was still wrestling from 24, I hope he comes back.
He became a meme, RKO out of nowhere.
And yes, RKO out of nowhere became one of the most popular memes ever. He kind of elaborated on DDP's Diamond Cutter and kind of made it even more special than it already was. So Randy Orton comes in at number 1. Hope he comes back. The dude's had a phenomenal career. Let's end it phenomenally as well.
Only 43 years old.
That's it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's Travis. Bring us home on this one.
All right, so I don't think any of y'all have mentioned any of mine. So, which is
I can name one probably.
Maybe I don't think so. I think so. I think we're going to end on kind of an interesting note. Like Todd, I'm going to also throw out 3 honorable mentions here. First honorable mention, we're going to go back to the ECW days and
ECW.
Who did not like Sabu?
Yeah,
Sabu was not mentioned. I mean, he was like the king of barbed wire matches.
Sandman was fine, but
the guy's skin is like permanently scarred from all the cuts that he's made on it through his hardcore days.
Sandman.
Actually got to meet him at a Wildcat show a few years back. He was with Jeannie. I think Jeannie actually passed away a few years ago, which was incredibly sad. But very nice guy, very entertaining to watch. Like I said, he was the hardcore legend, and his body shows the scars for it. Second honorable mention, this was probably the first famous person to ever send me a retweet, which is probably one of the reasons why he kind of escalated on this list. He's close friends with my number 2 on my list, but I'm going to go with the Machine Gun Carl Anderson. He's definitely an honorable mention. He's part of the Anderson and Gallows tag team. They have brought back the NWO Too Sweet. So the first retweet I ever got, I was riding the Tower of Terror,
the Bullet Club.
With the Bullet Club, was the main ones who brought back Too Sweet. Anderson and Gallows actually kind of brought that to WWE. We were riding the Tower of Terror in Disney World, and you know how they do the picture at the top. Well, Todd and I decided to do the Too Sweet, and we actually tweeted it out to Anderson, Gallows, and their good friend AJ Styles. And Carl Anderson actually gave me my first retweet on Twitter. So he kind of climbed that ladder of my favorite wrestlers. And he's actually has retweeted and communicated with me in the past on Twitter. So he's just a very humble guy, very open to his fans. Machine Gun Carl Anderson gets an honorable mention for me. The last honorable mention, we've talked a lot about Scott Hall at this table. We haven't really talked about his best friend in wrestling, Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Big Daddy Cool Diesel.
He also went by Diesel in WWE. He played the badass Russian in the Punisher movie with Tom Jane. He also played Shredder.
He's great in Adam Sandler movies.
He was also in Magic Mike, if y'all have not seen Magic Mike.
No, haven't seen that one.
Do you remember his cameo in Longest Yard? Not his cameo, but he was in Longest Yard with the estrogen pills and he starts crying.
So yeah, I'm surprised he wasn't mentioned yet, but I mean, he was definitely like one of the godfathers of the NWO, the Wolfpack, longtime tag team partner Scott Hall. We actually
I can say I walked by him on Bourbon Street.
Yes,
we were
with you.
I feel like my forehead was like at his nipples.
He had a girl under each.
My forehead was at his nuts.
The guy had a girl under each arm, but like when you see the guy climb over the top rope, and while you're watching the show, you can easily see why, because I mean the guy was just tall. I mean, you said where were you up to? Todd and I were probably up to his crotch. I mean, so yeah, the guy's extremely tall, very talented, good personality, big sexy. Kevin Nash comes in as my last honorable mention. I'm going to jump into the top 5 here, and we'll start with number 5. We talked a lot about Evolution, with Ric Flair, Triple H, Randy Orton. The kind of unsung hero of Evolution to me was Dave Bautista. He was kind of like the bodyguard to me, like Todd said with Randy Orton. Also was best playing a heel. I didn't necessarily like him as much as a fan favorite.
Yeah, they did some pretty crappy gimmicks with him when he was a favorite. But what about that physique, man? Like, I mean, he was like one of the first dudes that I'd seen in WWE that stepped on that just had muscles fucking everywhere.
Yeah,
like, I mean, it was like muscles on top of muscles.
The traps growing out of his ears.
If you look,
He was a beefcake.
I mean, if you look back at like the former bodybuilders who became professional wrestlers, none of them really made it. I mean, you had the Ultimate Warrior, he was one, but then you had that guy Chris Masters. He really didn't take off. Dave Bautista was another former bodybuilder who really took off and was able to become a long-time WWE champion. And much like John Cena and The Rock, he's made it in the movies as, he plays Drax the Destroyer in Guardians of the Galaxy. I think he does a phenomenal job with that. He comes in at number 5 for me. So number 4.
Who's not mentioning John Cena?
We can't see him.
Wait, who? Yeah.
Number 4 for me, much like Todd shifted over to kind of the AEW scene or one of the more smaller promotions. I'm going to go with the, y'all might recognize this guy's name from WWE, but he's actually became more popular in the smaller promotions. I'm going to go with the indie god, Matt Cardona, formerly known as Zack Ryder. Todd and I got to meet him at one of the local Comic-Cons that was over in Slidell. Funny story on how I met the guy. So I actually have his replica title belt. It's called the Internet Championship. And I had the belt with me. And I'm taking a piss. And he comes in the bathroom while I'm taking the piss. I got the belt over my shoulders. And I'm like starstruck. I'm like, oh, man. And I wash my hands and I go shake his hands. He's like, well, man, I'm not shaking your hand right now. You just peed. And then he started laughing. He said it kind of a joking way. But then, of course, we go into the show and we get to meet him and take a picture with him. He and Brian Myers, they actually do a podcast, by the way. We shout out to
we follow you.
The Major Wrestling Figure podcast, which is a great podcast, gets me through the workday sometimes. So we are kind of following your footsteps here. You were kind of like the guy who inspired me to want to do a podcast with my best friends, much like you and Brian Myers do. And shout out to Mark Sterling, too, because Mark Sterling doesn't get enough credit on y'all's pod. But, yeah, Matt Cardona comes in at number 4 for me. I know he's probably far away from a lot of the ones that I've mentioned here.
Not to cut you off, I'm looking at a picture of this dude right now. Shout out to this guy. He's either packing or stuffing those bottoms because, hey, my guy is ripped.
He's also got one of the better physiques, and he is married to WWE superstar Chelsea Green, who is smoking.
She is a smoke show.
Shout out to you, Matt. She's a very attractive wife. So number 3, this is where we kind of talked about. I talked about a feud between, a couple of my favorite wrestlers in real life. Number 3, if we go back to the Four Horsemen era.
Oh, no, put it down.
Four Horsemen era, we're gonna go back to. I like them best. I like them best as heels. And my favorite rendition of the Four Horsemen, and I may be in a minority here, was we go with Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Barry Windham, and Psycho Sid Vicious.
Psycho Sid
Psycho.
Vicious.
So number 3 is Psycho Sid for me.
He wasn't Sid Justice then.
I liked him better as Psycho Sid or Sid
Yes.
Vicious. I didn't like.
I was a big Psycho Sid fan.
Sid Justice wasn't my favorite rendition of him, but
Theme song.
as
Best theme song there.
that was another good one. I watched a documentary on the Four Horsemen, and no lie, there was actually real beef between Sid Vicious and Arn Anderson. They actually got in a fight at a hotel, and one of them got stabbed with a pair of scissors. I think Sid stabbed Arn with a pair of scissors, and one or the other. But yeah, so they really real life don't like each other. But Psycho Sid, great. He was great as Sid Justice. I liked him in the faction, but I liked him solo as well. He was a big, intimidating, scary looking guy.
Like the stretcher match between him and El Gigante back in WCW.
But I think that was probably the most memorable match of Sid in my lifetime, was when he did fight the loser. Was it the loser leaves WCW and
Sid lost, didn't he?
And Sid lost, and that's probably when he went over to WWE and became Sid Justice. But he lost to El Gigante in the stretcher match.
Gigante.
So
was he Psycho Sid in WCW?
he was in WCW. He was just Sid Vicious.
Oh, just Sid Vicious.
Part of the
Because he became Psycho Sid in WWF.
Yeah, and that was after his
Right.
Sid Justice days.
Obviously, Ric Flair was in the Horseman with him. In Ric Flair's book, he referred to Sid Udy is his real name,
Mm-hmm.
as a talentless steroid head.
So
he's got some of that, right?
Just putting that out there.
So obviously part of what happens with these factions behind the scenes, a lot of these guys may not have a choice with this and don't necessarily like each other. But all right, so I'm going to shift from Sid Vicious to number 2, and he is a current WWE superstar. What's most impressive about this guy is he has friggin' climbed the ladder all the way from back when Impact Wrestling was TNA. And he was a longtime TNA champion. He shifted from TNA/Impact to New Japan Wrestling out in Japan. That's where he really made his name for himself, with the Bullet Club. And
Bullet Club.
From the Bullet Club in New Japan, he ended up getting his big contract up with WWE and never been there since. This guy, to me, is probably the most, athletic performer I think I've ever seen. Like, I don't know if anybody wants to argue with me.
I already know Travis is going to
Johnny Sins would like a word, sir.
I'm glad he's at number 2 because this dude is like really fucking talented as far as like in-ring ability. I know you guys don't really watch current wrestling, but if you did, this would be one of the guys to watch.
And look, he's getting up there in age too. He's been doing this for a long time.
Rey Mysterio,
But he can fight.
Looks pretty bad right now.
He can almost fight as a cruiserweight, but he can also fight with the heavyweights. And the guy's athleticism is just off the scale. He can do top rope stuff. The phenomenal AJ Styles. Styles comes in at
That's what I was
number 8.
doing this for.
Styles.
So he is. I mean, the guy is incredible.
Yeah.
So if
That guy's to go on to Twitter too, Travis with the gloves.
If you haven't watched, yes, much like Patrick dressed as Coco Beware a couple of years ago, I was AJ Styles a few years ago for Halloween.
You looked hot.
You wore to WrestleMania.
Oh, thank you, appreciate that.
You wore to get up
And
to
yes, I do have the.
WrestleMania.
I lost those in the house fire, but I do have I used to have the AJ Styles gloves. And then I'm gonna go with number 1. This is this guy always kind of rode the coattails of Ric Flair. One of the more, he never really got his chance to be a heavyweight champ because he was always backing Ric Flair. He was the staple of the Four Horsemen. He was Ric Flair's longtime buddy. I think he's probably still employed with WWE in some way, shape, or form. Double A, the enforcer, Arn Anderson. I mean, he's my favorite wrestler of all time. And he was the guy, when I can look back at those old days of first ever watching wrestling, watching those WCWs, I still even remember watching them at my grandparents' house and seeing Arn Anderson come on the TV and said, I don't know. Maybe there was something about that whole.
He just didn't look like he was supposed to be a wrestler.
Right,
But
it was maybe it was that whole
Yeah,
dad.
he looked like he came out from behind his desk
He
job.
looked like the dude
100
from Home
he
Improvement
definitely
was a
sold
wrestler.
like insurance.
It was like I don't know if it was the horseshoe bald head with the dad bod with what, but he just
He wear
connected
glasses
with me.
sometimes.
Yeah, he would wear glasses too. Yeah.
He was my first ever favorite wrestler, and it just kind of stuck with me. I think he was very underrated. Unfortunately, never got his title shot to be a heavyweight champ. He was
Did he ever
always
win a title?
he was a tag team champ, and then he was the other champ that was in WCW that wasn't the heavyweight one,
Like
Probably
American
TV
champion.
champ or something
Probably
like that.
comparable to like the Intercontinental.
But
Yeah.
but he just never really got his shot. But he had such a long career in pro wrestling. I mean, I think he still works for WWE.
His son,
you know?
he's with AEW. His son's in AEW right now, Brock.
Yeah, Brock. Yeah.
So look, Double A Arn Anderson comes in at number 1 for me. Definitely an underrated, unspoken hero of wrestling. So I'll just kind of leave it at
He
that.
reminds me of the
All right,
dude from Home
really
Improvement.
quick, I want to throw something out there here. I want to get y'all's opinion on the one person you most hate in wrestling of all time.
Yikes.
Pick one. This is the fast one.
I'll start. I hate John Cena. I think John Cena. I think somebody mentioned why I didn't say John Cena. John Cena was barely ever a heel in his career, if ever. I didn't dig the whole steroid head in George persona. I thought his mic skills were very overrated as well.
When he come out doing that rapping, that slow rap
I just-
stuff.
I didn't like his whole gimmick either.
The feud he had with AJ Styles. I mean, I wanted AJ Styles to whoop his ass every time. I never bought the whole John Cena gimmick ever.
All right.
I still think he kind of sucks as an actor too. Just saying that.
I'm gonna go with Baron Corbin. Which y'all probably haven't heard of him.
I've heard the name.
Happy Corbin.
He won King of the Ring, and I think it's mainly because he was one of those guys that Vince McMahon kind of favored, but he was completely talentless. His in-ring ability was not that good. He was one of these guys that was balding, that they had the long hair. He just didn't have the look or the gimmick, really, or the in-ring ability. He wasn't talented. He's just a big guy that Vince McMahon kind of loved. So I'm going to go Baron Corbin.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I used to hate early Triple H before he was in Generation X, the Hunter Hearst Helmsley thing, when he'd like escort the women to the ring, and it was like
Yeah, that gimmick was pretty stupid.
kind of.
Well, I'll tell you who I hate, and it's like Travis said, John Cena, and for one particular reason, he sucks.
Can't
Okay,
say
he
it.
sucks as a wrestler, but what really did me in was I happened to be at the airport in Dallas, and I was there. I was going to a class in Vegas for work, and he was sitting right in front of me, right like we were like 10 feet away. And I said, okay, well, let me go over there and ask the guy for his autograph and tell him, thank you, and I watch you on TV and whatever. And I went over there and I was like, hey, John Cena, how you doing, man? I'd like to get your autograph. And he looked at me, and he called his bodyguard over to talk to me, to tell me to get away. And I thought, man, that was the dirtiest, the douchiest response that anybody could ever do.
I have a coworker
To a
at the school I work for that said he's met him in person, experienced the same thing. So the guy's just an overall tool.
He's a tool. So anyway,
I'm gonna echo John Cena,
John Cena.
but only because I never really liked his wrestling style. I never really liked the gimmick or the way he dressed. The only thing that gets determined for picking him is that he's on a car show that I watch as like someone that dropped a car off to someone to get some work done, and he's kind of cool. He's a car guy, so I think that I like him from that part. But as a wrestler, I never just really enjoyed him.
So yeah, just if you're listening, John Cena, just unsubscribe. But we're gonna take a shot. This shot
On
here-
that bombshell, I think it's time for a
this
shot and close this
here
show off.
is, Boom Boo,
Bumble rum.
Bamboo Rum from Barbados.
provided by the Shonsky. We're gonna take a shot here. This is for all the good wrestlers and not for John Cena.
Cheers.
Oh,
Cheers.
yeah.
Fuck Baron Corbin, too.
Wagons out.